Hello there, welcome to my overviews of issues 41 and 42 of Warhammer 40,000 Combat Patrol. Issue 41 is probably my favourite this week. I've been waiting for these guys for such a long time. We've got a brand new battle mat. I'm so happy with that. No, only joking. Obviously, we've got an Orc War Boss. I love Orcs. I've always loved Orcs. They've been my favourite since the second edition. And we've got some paints, Calgar Blue and Corellia Green Shade. So, opening up issue 41, we've got a little flyer for the scenery that you can buy, only £80, absolute bargain. If you don't have any scenery, definitely pick this stuff up. But unfortunately, I have all this stuff. I say unfortunately, it saved me 80 quid. I've got all this stuff, so I don't need it. But anyway, the magazine starts with the how to build section. Nice, simple, quick build, only going to take about 10 minutes to get him put together. And of course, that's exactly what I did next. With a snip, a scrape, and a glue, we've put together this absolutely fantastic model. You're going to notice I get a lot more excited while I'm doing the Orcs, because I absolutely love Orcs. As I said earlier, they've been one of my favourites for a very, very, very long time. So after we've stuck them together, the next thing we're going to be doing is the how to paint guide. Once again, they're going to say, paint this thing by hand. Don't do that, just spray it. Get yourself some nice colour forge spray. I don't need to start repeating myself on that. I'm just going to have it come up at the bottom, I think. He's a lot more in depth than most models, because obviously he is a character, so he's going to take a little while, but he's not going to take too long whatsoever. In fact, for me, he only took about 2.5 hours to get into the stage, or the work in progress stage that he is in the back of the magazine. The most important thing you're going to need to do, though, is keep that bad and black handy, as there are some tricky spots to get to this guy. There's lots of bits where the skin, where you need to get to his skin, and there will be occasional bits of sort of colour overflow, so don't worry about that. If you make any mistakes, you can always correct it. It's really easy to do. After all, you're doing nice thin layers, aren't we? So you're not going to make mistakes, or you're not going to worry about those mistakes. And again, if you do make any mistakes, like I said, it's super easy to just sort out. Won't take too long whatsoever. And but just the easiest thing to do, honestly, is actually just keep that the cleanup stage with the black till the very end. That way, you can get all your mistakes done at once, and get a nice sort of look at the model, and just spend like a sort of 5 minutes to sort that out. You'll be spending most of your time painting the silver, so have a good look around, make sure you don't miss anything, and then after that it's the washes. And I think for the first time, this is like the only model so far that will be using all the washes we currently have, and a sneak peek for the next issue, we'll also be using that wash when we start that one too. So this guy is going to be using every single wash we own, and he's definitely going to look the best. Although, personally, I really can't wait till we actually get to the cleanup stage and the highlight stage, because that's when these models are really going to shine. And here he is in all his still unfinished glory, but I've got to say, I do really love this model. I'm so happy to have my hands on these Orcs. Oh, the power of the Waaaagh is deep within me, and I can't wait to start smashing some, whatever's we're going to smash in this magazine. Speaking of which, we've got more lore. This time we're looking at the god of Slaanesh. He's part of Chaos, so who really cares, right? We're all about the Orcs. Give us some more Orcs. And that's exactly what we get. We're looking at some Orc characters with some naming conventions, which is a bit strange, to be honest, because the very next page after we look at these three characters is another naming table for our war boss. Not really sure what the point of having another one there, but behind that we've got our data sheet. We've already got our data sheets in the last issues. And then we're on to scenario 27, where we get to start crumping some, Eldari by the look of things. We're also using our brand new battle mat that came with this issue as well. And we've got a couple of special abilities that we can choose from. I'm going to go into that more. So first of all, I'm going to get this brand new lovely battle mat out. And the side at once is the side that looks more sort of gross and disgusting, with some toxic barrels laying about. So in this scenario, our mighty Orc war boss is up against one Wraith Guard, 3 Guardian Defenders with a heavy weapons platform, and 1 Windrider with twin-linked shuriken catapults. So according to deployment, the Eldari player is going to set up first. There are specific places where to place these guys, so we're going to place them exactly where they are meant to be. The objective of this mission is not only show off how good the war boss is, but it's also to take out that heavy weapons team for the Eldari. And with those guys placed, the war boss then gets put in his position. And we're going to choose the brutal characteristic, so any damage from ranged weapons is halved. After that, the game wants us to set up some terrain, so I'm going to use the cardboard terrain that comes with it and put those into position. And with that, we're all ready to go. Orcs get the first turn, so let's get cracking. Naturally, our war boss wants to get stuck straight in, and the first thing he's going to be going up against is a Wraith Guard, so he's going to get as close as he can to that with his movement of 5. And might as well have a shot at him before we go in. He's got 3 attacks, needing 4s to hit, which he hits with 2. So at a strength of 5 versus a toughness of 6 means we need 5, so we got 1 successful wound, but that was saved by the Wraith Guard. Of course, we're going to charge in. One of the dice scooted off the side of the thing, but he made it, and he dove straight into combat. So his Ood Chopper has 4 attacks, needing 2s to hit. He hit with all 4, and the strength of the weapon is 12, but as the toughness is 6, that's not more than half, means we still only need 3s. We get 3 successful wounds. With a -2 AP, the Wraith Guard managed to fail his saves. Meaning that's a whopping 6 points of damage to that one poor Wraith Guard, and he is out of there. He then moves forward with his 3-inch consolidation, bearing down on his next target. Let's be honest, the Eldari are never going to win this fight. They're always going to lose. It is literally just to show off the war boss, but they're going to have a crack at doing as much damage to him as possible. The Wind Rider is going to move up forward to try and sort of get in the way and try and do as much damage to the war boss as possible with their shuriken catapults. Both shots managed to hit, needing 3 pluses. And at strength 4 against a toughness of 5 meant they need 5s, but they successfully managed to get 1 hit, but that hit was easily saved by the war boss's armor. It's the Guardians' turns next, so the first thing they're going to use is their shuriken catapults. They get 2 attacks each, needing 3s to hit. 5 of them hit, but once again, because their weapon strength is not high enough, they still need 5s to do any wounds. But fate does smile upon them, and they managed to get 3 out of the 5 attacks to go through. And thanks to the -1 AP, one of those shots managed to get through the thick armor. So this first wound means the war boss has got 6 remaining. It was then the go of the dreaded Star Cannon. Now this weapon is a marine killer and it's designed to do as much damage as possible. Once again, it needs 3s to hit. However, only 1 managed to find its mark. That shot, however, did only need 3s to wound, which it successfully made. And with a -3 AP, we're going to rely on the invulnerable save for the Orc, which managed to save. Mork and Gork are truly blessing my brand new war boss. With what will definitely be the last turn of this scenario, the Orc war boss is going to just move forward and crump those Eldaris and get rid of that heavy weapons platform. Naturally, the first thing he's going to do is move his full 5 inches to get as close as he can, and then he's going to open fire with his big shooter, hitting with 2, wounding with both, but the Guardian somehow managed to save one of those shots. However, 1 didn't, so that's 1 off the battlefield. And next up, it's time for the war boss to almost fail his charge, but thankfully he managed to get in there with 5 inches, and it's crumping time. Once again, he gets 4 attacks, he hits with all 4, and now he only needs 2s to wounds, and the Eldari won't get a save from this, and he's successfully wounded with all 3, meaning it's game over for the Eldari, and it's game over in general, as the war boss successfully destroys that weapons platform. Oh, I love him. How I love him. I can't wait to get the rest of his friends so I can properly smash some heads, and rightly so. Orcs rule. So after our scenario, we've got the usual victory blurb. Of course, it's always going to be an Orc victory. But on the fun side, we also have a customizable scenario where you can change a few things up, adding the Tyranids or the Chaos Space Marines if you wish. And then finally, the last splash page is a lovely image of some Orcs versus Leagues of Votann, which we'll be getting soon. So, on to issue 42 now. We got 2 paints with these. We got some Calgar Blue and some Corellia Green Shade. However, by the looks of things, we're only going to be using the Corellia Green Shade, and as I've already painted my Nids a completely different colour scheme, I'm only going to be painting the Farseer and the War Boss. It's not going to take long whatsoever, so I'm going to get that out of the way. So the painting this time around didn't even take 5 minutes. It was that fast. There's not really much to do. As I said, it's just the skins or the loincloth that I'm doing. There's a couple of bits and bobs on the Tyranids, but that's not going to take much longer. Maybe 10 minutes maximum. Well, here's them being as complete as they are so far. I really can't wait to actually start getting the other paints. We've got the first one now with the Calgar Blue, so we're definitely going to start doing the highlights very shortly. So after our paint session, we're looking at some lore. This time we're looking at the Orks and how glorious and wonderful they are. They are some of my favourite armies or models on the battlefield, and I absolutely love Grasgull here. I think he is so gorgeous. I've got him, but I haven't painted him. I might do some more videos after this where I actually add to the armies and build them up a little bit more, so he might get painted. Then we're looking at technology in the 41st millennium, and we're having a quick look at the Adaptus Mechanicus, a army that's not involved, along with the Necrons or the crew, which belong to the Tau. Neither of those are in this, but they are worth looking into. Following that, we're looking at part 10 of our Silver Templars story. That's 2 pages, a great little toilet read if you forget your phone. And following this, we're looking at battlefields and examples of battlefields, especially the terrain that you can currently get for £80. That is definitely worth buying if you don't have any terrain. It's an absolute bargain, and the terrain is quite nice. Like I said, I think it's in this video, I already have all that, so I don't actually need some or need to buy. I might sort of dig it out and paint it all up as an extra video. It depends on the time and how much sprays I have. After that, we've got our full breakdown of our Chaos Space Marine Combat Patrol. Now, this is basically everything we've got except the Demon Prince and the Chaos Terminators. And then lastly, we've got 2 Combat Patrol missions. One called Scorched Earth, which looks like quite an interesting mission to do. And obviously, we've got our table to track the progress of everybody. And the next one is Sweeping Raid, which, again, looks pretty fun. I think I'm going to give one of these a go. I think we'll go with Scorched Earth. So we're going to make sure we get the rules right this time with Scorched Earth. There doesn't seem to be anything that affects the first turn, and nothing that sort of implies that either the attacker or defender goes first. So we're going to lay out our terrain and place our markers as they are on the page. And who is fighting this battle? Well, it's none other than our Chaos Space Marines, and they'll be led by the Dark Apostle and his 2 acolytes. 10 Legionnaires, including a Heavy Bolter and a Multi-Melter, and the Aspiring Champion also has a Plasma Pistol. Then 5 Havocs, 1 with a Heavy Bolter, 1 with a Reaper Autocannon, 1 with a Missile Launcher, and 1 with a Las Cannon, and the Aspiring Champion has a Plasma Gun. Next, we've got our 5 Chaos Terminators. 1 of those has a Reaper Autocannon. And finally, joining our Chaos Marines is their Hellbrute. And simply because it hasn't actually happened yet, they're going up against the Space Marines, including the Space Marine Captain in Terminator armor, the Librarian, who is also wearing Terminator armor, a Chaplain mounted on a bike, 5 Infernus Marines, and lastly 5 Terminators, 1 with an Assault Cannon. I've decided that the Chaos will be the defenders, so they get deployed first. And of course, we alternate until everything's being deployed. The roll to see who goes first didn't go well for Chaos, as they rolled a 1, while the Space Marines rolled a 4. So at the beginning of Ultramarines turn 1, naturally they need to get to those objectives as quickly as possible. But before that happens, we're going to choose our Oath of Moment unit, and we're going to focus that on the Chaos Terminators. So the Infernus Marines moved up towards the 4th objective marker, and it was at this stage I was starting to get a bit frustrated with the ruler that comes with the actual set. I did use it for this bit, and I also used it for the Chaplain on a bike, who also surged forward as well. But I'd had enough, so I broke out my actual wargaming ruler for the rest of the game. All the Terminators moved forward to get in a better position and get closer to their objective markers. In the shooting phase, the Infernus Marines are too far out of range, but the Chaplain can actually pick out a couple of those Chaos Marines. So the first weapon that the chaplain is going to fire is his own pistol, to which he hits and wounds, but the Chaos Space Marine managed to make the save. He then fired the twin-linked bolters, both of those hit, only one however wounded, but that was enough and it did manage to break through that Chaos Space Marine's armour, causing one wound on the Legionnaires. The Terminator captain hadn't really got line of sight, so he didn't fire this turn, so we moved straight to the Terminators, double checking they were in range, which of course they were. This is not a very big battlefield. And their target are their chaotic counterparts. Starting with the Stormbolters and needing 3s to hit, we managed to hit with 5, but only 2 of those 5 wounded. And the unlucky recipient of that also failed his save, so that's 1 wound onto the Chaos Terminators. The Assault Cannon then whirled up and fired his 6 shots. Now again, he needs 3s to hit, and he managed to hit with all 6. He also needed 3s to wound, as the weapon is strength 6, and he only managed to wound with just 5 of them, sadly. And even sadder, the Terminators just shrugged off the shots. All that's left to fire is the Librarian, and he's going to use his focused Witchfire, meaning he has to roll a die 6 to see how many attacks he gets. And the Space Marines are doing quite well, because he managed to roll a 5. He also needs 3s to hit, and he managed to hit with all 5. He then proceeded to wound with all 5, as he needed 3s. And as the focused Witchfire is a -2 on AP, 3 of the Chaos Terminators failed their saves. Each wound is also die 3 wounds, and they managed to score 6 wounds in total, meaning that we've lost 3 Chaos Terminators in the first turn. Even though Chaos has just lost 3 of their Terminators, they're still feeling pretty good. It is, after all, just the start of the mission, but we need to do a battle shock test for those 2 remaining Terminators to see if they can claim objective markers. We're going to have to keep doing this each round. They successfully pass. And much like the Marines, everything on the Chaos Force is going to move up. So the Terminator is going to head towards the second objective alongside the Hellbrute. The Chaos Legionnaire is going to head towards the first objective. And the Dark Apostle is going to start to move towards the third objective alongside the Hellbrute. So kicking things off with the Terminators wanting to get a little bit of revenge, they're going to fire at their Terminators with the autocannon. All 4 shots hit. However, only 2 of them wound, but that wound was enough to penetrate the armour thanks to the -1 armour penetration. So that's 1 wound on the Ultramarine Terminators. The Hellbrute then decided to join in the fun, firing his heavy plasma. However, he needs to roll die 3 shots. He rolled for 3. 2 of those shots hit, but unbelievably, somehow he managed to flub both the wounds, meaning he left with nothing. The Dark Apostle is out of range of anything, so he's not going to be firing, so we're going to go straight to the Havocs. We're going to be splitting fire with these guys, and the first thing the Havocs are going to use is their missile launcher. He's going to fire at the Terminators. He hits, he wounds, but the Terminator managed to save like an absolute boss. The Firing Champion then used his plasma gun to take aim. He managed to hit with his, still needing 3s. Basically everything needs 3s. He wounded us, so this is quite a high strength weapon, but the Terminator failed his save, meaning we've lost 1 of the Terminators. The Heavy Bolter then changed direction and he fired at the Infernus Marines instead, trying to take out as many of those as he could. He hit with all 3 of his shots. He managed to wound with all 3, and 1 of the Marines failed 1 of the saves, meaning we've lost 1 wound on the Infernus Marines. The last cannon then took aim at the Terminators. However, even though he needs 3s followed by 3s, he managed to only roll a 2 for the wound. The Reaper autocannon then decided to also fire at the Infernus Marines, just like his Heavy Bolter brethren. But for some reason, he's not packing much ammo, as he only hit with 3. And even though he managed to wound with all 3 shots, the Space Marines then retaliated by saving all of their armor saves. Lastly, the Legionnaires, instead of firing at the Infernus Marines, they're going to try and take out that Chaplain before that Chaplain comes and gives them a slap in the face. And they're going to kick things off with their Heavy Bolter. However, he must be friends with the Reaper autocannon, as he only managed to hit with 1. But that 1 was enough to actually cause a wound, and the Chaplain also managed to fail his armor save, meaning we've received 1 wound on the Chaplain. The 3 bolters that can see the Chaplain are also going to open fire. However, they're not going to have as much success as the Heavy Bolter. Only 2 managed to hit, and only 1 of those managed to cause a wound, and that was then deftly saved. Next up, there's 2 bolt pistols that can see him as well, so they're both going to fire, both hit, but then both failed to cause any wounds. Finally, the melter gun was going to take his shot at the bike as well. He managed to hit, he managed to cause a wound, but luck is definitely on the side of the chaplain as he managed to make his vulnerable save. It was then that I realised that the bolter was actually rapid fire, so I'm going to give 3 more shots to those bolters before we move on to the next turn. But even though while all 3 of those shots managed to hit, all 3 of them also failed to wound. Things looking pretty good for the Ultramarines at the beginning of turn 2. They've definitely got their hands on the 4th objective marker, and they're getting quite close to the 3rd. Now, at the beginning of turn 2, if you're in control of an objective marker that isn't A or B, you can actually destroy it, but I'm not in control of either of those, so I'm not going to do that. But we are in control of objective marker 4, which means we are going to receive 5 victory points. So first things first is movement, and the Terminators are going to move up closer towards the 3rd objective marker in hopes to grab hold of that for their next turn. And on the other side of the battlefield, the only people who are going to move are the Chaplain on a bike and the Terminator Captain. The Infernus Marines are quite happy staying where they are for now. In the shooting phase, the Terminators are going to take out the Dark Apostle, I think. He's probably going to become a problem later, so opening up with their Stormbolters. They managed to hit with 4, but as 2 of those were 6s, they get extra dice for the sustained hits, and they managed to wound with 5. Unfortunately, the Dark Apostle wasn't so lucky as he failed a whopping 4 saves, meaning we've lost both his Acolytes and he's received 2 wounds. Next up is the Mighty Assault Cannon. That's also going to absolutely rinse him with its 6 shots, needing 3s to hit and 3s to wound. He hit with 5, but thanks to sustained hits, he gets an extra wound roll. So he managed to wound with all 6 of those hits as well, and unfortunately for the Dark Apostle, he failed 3 of his saves, meaning the Dark Apostle is no more. With the Dark Apostle dead, the Librarian decided he was going to use his focused Witchfire on the Chaos Terminators instead. So only to see how many shots he fired, he fires 6 in total. And 5 of those managed to make their mark. And out of those 5, 3 of them managed to wound. And unfortunately for the Chaos Terminators, they failed 2 of their saves, meaning they're going to take D3 damage each. One received 2 wounds, and the other also received 2 wounds. Meaning it's goodbye, Terminators. On the other side of the battlefield, the Chaplain opened fire at the Chaos Legionnaires. He managed to hit with his pistol. He also wounded with his pistol, but the Legionnaire made his save. He then used his twin-link bolt rifle attached to the front of the bike. Both of those shots hit, but only one managed to penetrate. However, it must have been somewhere sensitive as the shot managed to go through and the Legionnaire failed his save. And one's already got a wound, so that's taken one off the field. Then I made sure to see how many of the Infernus Marines were in range of the Legionnaires. There's only 4 out of the 5 that are in range. So we'll be rolling 4d6 to see how many shots we get. And we got a not bad 15 attacks. So I need 4s to wound, and I'm basically going to re-roll 3 of these dice. Meaning in total, they cause 6 wounds. Out of those 6, 3 saves were failed. So that's another 1.5 Chaos Legionnaires down. Then the Space Marine Captain decided to also fire on that unit. However, while he managed to hit with both, he only wounded with 1, and that one was promptly saved. Just now time for combat. The Chaplain is easily getting in there with a roll of a 9. The Terminator Captain also thought he'd be able to squeeze in there. He managed to roll a 9 as well somehow, so he made it into combat too. So starting with the Chaplain on a bike and using his Cronus Arcanum, he needs 2s to hit, and he's going to need 3s to wound. He managed to hit with all 5 of his attacks, and out of those 5, he wounded with 4. There's a -1 to the AP, but that didn't matter anyway, as the saves rolled a double 1, meaning we've lost another 2 Legionnaires. Moving on to the Terminator Captain with his 6 attacks, I nearly said 5. He also needs 2s followed by 3s. And he managed to hit with 5. Now with those 5 attacks, he managed to wound with all 5 attacks, and with the -1 on the AP, he also took out 4 of the Legionnaires. Legionnaires are looking pretty bad so far. There's only 2 of them left now. However, they're going to dive in to see how much damage they can cause hand to hand. Starting with the guy with the chainsaw, he's got 4 attacks by himself. He only managed to hit with 1, and that one managed to completely fail to cause any wounds. So then the aspiring champion decided to have his go, and even though he's also got 4 attacks, he did hit with all 4, but out of those he only managed to wound with 1. It must have been a good blow though, as the chaplain failed his save. So that's 2 wounds on the chaplain on a bike. I also realised my mistake at this stage and noticed that the relic weapon held by the Terminator captain is actually -2 on AP, so we're going to have to remove another Legionnaire. I'll remove the last chainsaw dude. He didn't do anything anyway, so it's not really going to change the battle. At the beginning of Chaos Turn 2, things are definitely looking a lot bleaker with the loss of the Chaos Terminators and most of the Legionnaires. The closest they've got to an objective marker is too far away, but we still need to take a battle shock test with him, so that's what we're going to do, and he successfully passes. In the movement phase, the Hellbrute is going to head towards the Terminators to try and get as much vengeance as he can. Now the Havocs are just going to try and take advantage of their position and shoot down at the Terminators as well. So starting with the Hellbrute, he gets to fire a whopping 1 shot at the Terminators, which he then promptly managed to hit, but he failed to wound. So moving on to the Havocs with the missile launcher, he's going to fire a crack missile, which he misses. Plasma gun fired next with the aspiring champion. He managed to hit, he managed to wound, and he managed to cause an actual wound as the Terminator failed his save. However, it was normal strength, so he only received 1 wound. Next up was the Heavy Bolter, turned to fire, and he's also going to fire at the Terminators. We're going to try and rinse them as much as possible and cause as much damage in this turn. He only managed to hit with 2. He did only wound with 1, and that 1 was promptly saved. The last cannon, on the other hand, had a little bit more success. He managed to successfully hit, successfully wound, and the Terminator failed his save. Or at least that's what I thought, but we'll get back to that in a moment. It was then the turn of the Reaper chain gun to fire into them, as you could just see them past the Hellbrute. But he still hasn't shaken off what was affecting him earlier, as he only managed to hit with 4. And he only managed to wound with 3 of those 4. And then all 3 were saved. Onto the combat phase, and the Hellbrute must have been filled with furious rage and anger as he rolled a whopping 12 inches, even though he's right next to them. So he gets 5 attacks, needing 4s to hit, and he'll need 2s to wound with a -3 AP. He only managed to hit with 3 of his attacks though, and only 2 of those were successful wounds. It was also at this stage that I realised my mistake. I'm so used to Terminators having a 5+ invulnerable save when they do in fact have a 4+. I'm not going to put the Terminator back on the battlefield, and my mistake is my mistake, and I'll leave him off, as let's face it, the Chaos aren't winning this. The Terminators then moved into their combat with a 3-inch pile-in move. And starting with the Terminator Sergeant, he rolls 4 attacks. He managed to hit with 2. He needs 5s to wound. He managed to get 1 6. And then, not to really anybody's surprise, the Hellbrute managed to fail his save, meaning he's got 1 wound. The Terminator Librarian then had his attacks, which I managed to fail to record, but he did manage to cause another 4 wounds. All that was left was those 2 power fists on those 2 Terminators. So out of 6 attacks, 2 missed, but 3 of them did manage to cause a wound as they needed 5+, and naturally the Hellbrute managed to fail all of his saves, meaning the Hellbrute is no more. Next, the aspiring champion thought he'd go down swinging as he attacked the chaplain, and he did manage to hit with all 4 of his attacks. He also managed to fail to cause any wounds. So the chaplain, not wanting to mess around, just decided to stove this guy's skull in as quickly as possible. He hit with all of his attacks, wounded with them all, and unfortunately for that poor Legionnaire, he managed to fail 2 of his saves. And with that, that's the last Legionnaire gone, and the Terminator Captain and the Chaplain moved up for 3 inches closer and closer to those poor Havocs that are the only things left on the Chaos side. And at the beginning of the Ultramarines turn 3, it's not looking good for Chaos whatsoever. They've lost. There's no going back, as The objective marker 4 is still being held by the Infernus Marines, and the Terminators have hold of objective marker 3. And following the rules, basically the guys are going to get 10 victory points this turn, as I'm definitely going to raise the third objective marker. So that brings their total up to 25. Movement-wise, the Chaplain and the Space Marine Terminator Captain are going to move forward their full length to get as close to the Havocs as they can. The Terminators are also going to move up, seeing that they've now raised their objective marker, and they might as well just take some shots at the Havocs. Of course, Infernus Marines are just going to stay there. And the shooting phase is going to be nice and short and sweet, starting with the Stormbolters from the Terminators. They're going to shoot at the Havocs. All 4 shots, managed to hit. 2 of those shots wounded. And surprisingly, both of those saves were failed, meaning we've lost 1 Havoc already. The Assault Cannon then took his aim. Well, it hasn't been as good as it was previously, as he managed to miss with 2 of the shots. 3 shots managed to wound, but to my surprise, 3 shots also were saved. The Librarian then had a crack using his Witchfire. He managed to squeeze off 4 shots, but only 2 of them managed to hit. And even more surprisingly, neither of them wounded. Maybe he's exhausted from doing so much damage to the Terminators earlier. The Captain and the Chaplain are not going to do any shooting. In fact, they're just going to charge in there and cause as much melee damage as possible. Naturally, both of them make it, as they're pretty much breathing down those Havoc's necks already. We're going to kick things off with the Chaplain, and he's going to use his 5 attacks, needing 2s to hit, followed by 3s to wound, to which he only managed to cause 3, but these are -1 to the AP, and the Havocs failed 2 of their saves, meaning we've lost another 2 Havocs. And with the Terminator Captain making his attacks, I think it's safe to say there's no chance for the Havocs left now, as he managed to hit with 5 out of his 6 attacks. And all 5 of those managed to wound. With an AP of -2 as well, 2 saves were failed, meaning we've lost the last of our Chaos Forces. That was a pretty fun scenario that I just played, to be honest. It's quite a good little mission. Can't believe that it was so one-sided though on the side of the Space Marines. So the back page is just once again another picture of some of the awesome models you can get for Orks and Leagues of Votann, and then we've got our look at the next 2 issues. I'm super excited. 10 Ork boys are on their way, along with some Astrogranite, so we can finally start basing our models. It's been one of my favourite couple of issues, to be honest, this time around, but I think it's just because I'm so happy to finally get my hands on the Orks. I've been looking forward to this moment for quite some time. He's a gorgeous Warboss model. I haven't got him. I've got like an older Ork army from a couple of sort of editions ago. They're going strong. They're happy. That's all that matters. But I'm happy that I now get to add some of the newer stuff. If you liked the video, give the channel a subscribe. And if you want to see more, well, there'll be a couple more when I get the next 2 issues. Thanks again, and goodbye for now.